Hello, I'm Jessica Samuels. Welcome to A Way Forward, presented by Beam Credit Union. This podcast is produced on the ancestral, traditional, and unceded territories of the Okanagan Syilx people. My guest today is Corey Hirsch. He's a former NHL goaltender, a Stanley Cup winner, an Olympic silver medalist, and a mental health ambassador and advocate. His story is of someone who, from all outward appearances, was at the top of his game, but he was not. And in fact, he was struggling so significantly with his mental illness, he almost didn't make it. But he did. He asked for help. And he's here to let anyone who's struggling know that it does get better. Beam Credit Union is proud to sponsor today's episode. With deep roots in BC and a commitment to your financial journey, Beam believes wellness, mental and financial, starts with support you can count on. Corey, thank you for being here. And I say that on two levels. Thank you for being here on the podcast. And thank you for being here with this message. It's an incredible story, an important story to tell. And I really appreciate you being here to tell it.
Well, and I appreciate you being able to allow me to tell it, because if there's nobody to hear it, then we have nothing, right? So it's a mutual respect. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Very true. Thank you so much. So let's go back to, I read an article that you wrote in 2017 in the Players Tribune. It's called Dark, Dark, Dark. There's actually 8 darks, but we'll talk a little bit about that. It was such an emotional read. It took me a little bit to get through it. I don't mind telling people that. I can't imagine what it was like for you to write it. Can you tell me what brought you to the point to write that article at that time?
There's a lot of factors. I'd always considered telling, obviously my story. We all have a story to tell, but with mine, I was going to initially write a book, is what I was thinking of doing, and going out that route. And it was taking a bit of time, and I hummed and hawed on it when I met another player in the National Hockey League, who was in a rehabilitation center in Arizona at the time where I was living. And this player was an active player at the time. I'd been retired for 15 years at this point. I'd met him, and I was through a mutual friend, and just thought, I'll take him for coffee. He's in a rehabilitation center. He must need a friend or someone just to talk to. Mm-hmm. And so I took him to Starbucks, and we went and we sat there, and I just had never really told anybody but close friends and family my story. Nobody really knew. And then with him, I just figured, him being in a treatment center, for addiction, I figured I'll just tell him, because usually addiction and mental health go hand in hand. So I figured I would just maybe he could find some common ground in it. And so I started telling him my story, and I told him all about it. And he looked at me, dead straight in the eyes. He says, "Oh my God, that's exactly what I've gone through." And his mom had to resuscitate him twice from fentanyl overdoses. So it was at that point I went, okay, here's a person that's almost died twice from addiction with fentanyl overdoses. Who knows how many other times? I didn't realize that there was other people out there like me at the time. And it was that moment the light bulb went off, and it was like, oh my God, there are thousands of more people out there like me that need to hear the story, that we're hiding our mental health issues, that who knows how many were successful at overdoses or suicides, right? So it was at that point I just went, okay, I got to get my story out there. And the wheels just kind of got in motion. The universe just kept putting people in front of me. Put a lady named, Catherine McCauley and Lana Quinn in front of me randomly. I met Lana at a funeral, actually, of an old coach of mine. And it was like a month after I had met this player, who I won't say the name due to privacy. But it was almost as if, and then they put me in touch with the NHL, who put me in touch with the Players Tribune, and the story just got rolling. And Lana was almost the same story. I was just sitting there beside her, and we were talking, and I just spewed my story to her. I don't even know why, I just did. And she put the wheels in motion, and the Players Tribune article came out. And that article is still probably is one of the most clicked on articles in Players Tribune history in sports publishing. That includes Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, all these great athletes. And here's mine, Corey Hirsch, kid from Calgary, and my article hit just as hard. So that's kind of the long-winded answer, but that's how it all happened. Yeah.
Well, and it is a long answer, but I appreciate it because what I notice is most significant in that response, and also as part of the story, is that you talked about it. So you told, in this instance where you met this player for coffee, and you told your story, and then you realized you weren't alone, and he realized he wasn't alone, and then you tell it again. And I really feel like that's at the heart of the crux of you speaking and telling your story. So now let's go back to 1994 for people who don't know your story, or maybe don't know the details of your story. What was happening for you?
Yeah, so I have obsessive compulsive disorder. It manifests in a lot of different ways. In 1994, I was rolling right along in life, and OCD is a little bit different than something that's trauma-based or depression or anxiety. OCD for me was like something in my brain just broke, like two wires disconnected. I started getting repetitive thinking, deep, dark thoughts that, weren't true. And my rational brain, my irrational brain were fighting each other. And the way OCD manifests, most people think it's, hand washing and cleanliness and organization and all that. I did everything in my head. Everything was mental compulsions for me. So you couldn't see it, right? So I was able to hide it very easily because I didn't have any outward things where people would notice, this place is, or whatever, or organized, or any one of those. I did everything in my head. So, I had and I'm not afraid to say this, but it manifests in a lot of men and a lot of people with your sexual orientation, your sexuality. It can go after that. And mine was thinking that I might possibly be gay, which today, it's not a big deal. I don't care anymore. But back in 1994, that would have, thrown out my NHL career, would have been a big news thing, big thing. So it kind of attacked it that way. Now, the content of it is typically, it doesn't matter, right? It's OCD attacks whatever. But I went on to there thinking, giving people HIV to like all sorts of different things. That's how it manifested for me when I, was none of those things. But your rational and irrational brain, it's hard to describe. It's like the best way to describe OCD is you're driving down the road, you get a thought, 2-lane traffic, one's coming this way, we all get that thought, well, what if I accidentally just screwed my wheel into that lane? Well, it'd be chaos, things would happen. Well, a rational, normal brain would go home and go, well, that was a silly thought, because you would never do it, but it's just a thought. And an OCD brain like me would go home, I would think about it, I would never want that to happen ever, to the point where I would just stop driving my car, right? Like it would get to that point where 24/7, that's the only thought I'd be able to have. That's OCD. So mine manifested a little bit differently, and there's thousands of ways that OCD can manifest. There's harm, religious, sexuality, cleanliness, but people only think that it's cleanliness. It's got a wide variety of things. And the other thing about OCD that I need people to understand is that people are like, oh, it's cute, you're clean, you're that. Most of my friends that have obsessive compulsive disorder before they were diagnosed have made a suicide attempt. That's how debilitating it is. But the thing about OCD that I want to tell people out there is that no matter what it has, it also has the best gains once you do get diagnosed. So that's kind of, again, another long-winded answer, because there really is no short-winded way to say any of this. But that's OCD. That's how it manifests. But to also know that it's one of the most treatable, not curable, but it's very treatable once you're diagnosed.
Okay. So the diagnosis came later. I mean, in these moments, in the throes of, we're talking about 1994, and you were managing these thoughts, or trying to, and from what I'm hearing from you, worried that you're going to embark on these actions or have these things that you won't have any control over. How were you managing? I mean, on one hand, you're hoisting up the Stanley Cup, but it's interesting. Well, and that's the whole point, that you weren't. So you're hoisting up the Stanley Cup, and you're really, really, really troubled. Like,
Yeah, well, it's every time you get, and again, it's just a thought. We have millions a day, but when you get hit with an OCD thought, it's like getting hit with a taser gun of anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
It can be crippling, it can be debilitating, and then your brain is fighting truth versus non-truth, right? I still to this day, 53 years old, I'm a heterosexual man, but my brain was trying to tell me something else, right? And you just get into, it's called brain lock. It's almost like you just get into a fight where one side is rational, one is irrational. And it's debilitating. It's anxiety fueled, it's crushing. And I wasn't functioning. Off the ice, stopped hanging out with my friends, stopped doing things around the rink. Really, the only sanctuary I had was on the ice. That was
Mm-hmm.
where my brain was occupied, and that's where I felt like I was safest. But the minute I stepped off the ice, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, man, I was in torture. Like those thoughts were just never ever leaving. They were automatic almost.
And you talked about you have friends who had have thought about or actions, thought
Oh
about
yeah.
committing suicide, and you are one of those people as well. And in the midst of that, you had a very significant incident where you were gonna do it. It was
Well,
over.
yeah, absolutely. And we need to let people know that people that are thinking suicidal thoughts,
Mm-hmm.
um, there's nothing wrong with that. Please come forward, let us know, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
we're ashamed to tell people that we're having these thoughts and that's what we're going through, but that's actually what keeps us prisoner, right? And what we do is when we shame people for having these thoughts, we make them feel worse. Hey, you know what? It's okay you're having these thoughts, but there's a better solution out there. There's a better answer. We can get you some help, with this. And to stop shaming people for feeling this way and thinking this way. And like I say, it's not the solution. That's not what I'm saying here. I'm saying that we all, from time to time, things happen. We get a bit sad, but don't be afraid to tell somebody that you're having suicidal thoughts. Please don't be afraid to tell somebody and reach out. Look, I'm not thinking properly, or these things are going through my mind, and reach out for help. That there is a solution, that there is hope, that there is help, that it is available. And if we can encourage people to come forward rather than shame them for thinking these things, no matter how, whatever it is, we can help you. And that's, yeah, we keep ourselves prisoners
Yeah.
because of our own thoughts, and there's a
Well,
better.
and it goes back to what we were talking about before of not talking, right? And it's
Yeah.
it's that layered stigma. I mean, having a mental health issue, having a mental illness, whatever it is, there's stigma associated with that, and then associated with thoughts of suicide or having a plan. And what I really hear from you and all the things that you're saying is talking to somebody,
Yeah.
turning to somebody, and saying, "Hey, this is what I'm doing," and this is what you did.
Yeah. Well, and it's because we think our thoughts, someone else is going to judge us for them, or someone else is going to, but it's they are what they are, but they also keep us trapped as a prisoner in our own brain, right? Because we think that we can't talk to anybody about this. Who's going to listen to us? Especially with OCD, because some of your thoughts out there can go right off the deep end. But that's what it does. So what we need to do is encourage people to go see their doctor, to go talk to people, because they've seen it all, they've heard it all.
Mm-hmm.
Please open up to a doctor, open up to somebody. And if somebody comes and opens up to you, but the best thing you can do is listen and not judge, and lead them to a professional, right? You might not understand as that person that they've opened up to, but the greatest gift you can give is to lead them to a professional, right? And there's nothing to be embarrassed about. Mental health is something that affects us all. We all get sad from time to time. We all get anxious from time to time. We go through struggles at time to time. But man, when you open up and finally let it off your chest, it's like an elephant falls off your back.
And is that what it was like for you when you finally opened up to the team trainer?
Oh yeah. Well, what it was I was, but I got to the point where I was suicidal again, where the option was I didn't really have a choice. but my OCD made me, I had two choices. Well, I could either end it or I could open up to somebody. So OCD didn't really give me a choice, right? And I chose to open up to somebody because I didn't want to go the other route. But we don't want people to get to that point, right? Early diagnosis is the key. It's like anything. It's like cancer. You want to get diagnosed early. It's easier to treat. It's easier to fix. Same with mental health. So don't wait, go get the help. So that's what I did. I ended up, opening up to a trainer, and there's 3 years of my life gone because I tried to hide it, and I stayed sick, right? But the time that when I opened up to a trainer and got a psychologist, got diagnosed, it meant the world. It changed my life, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned something earlier about how your particular thoughts manifested, and it's a different world today. I'm wondering, the topic of mental health and struggling and not doing well from an NHL perspective, or even a high performance athlete, or even as a male in the community, we're thinking about how stigmas manifest around these things. At that time, we're talking 94, 95 here. Things were not as far along as they are now. You told someone, you got a diagnosis, you were still living with this though. How was that environment for you? Did other people on the team begin to know? Did you continue to open up?
No. I went to see a psychologist, got diagnosed, and I knew, but I still didn't want anybody else to know that I had a diagnosable mental health issue, right? So there was another 20 years. So I was diagnosed in like 97, 2017, the article came out. So 20 years, I didn't tell anybody but close family and friends, right? So
why? Like what?
The stigma, same thing.
Yeah.
Same reason, stigma. And then I got to a point where as I got older, it didn't really matter anymore, right? So I just it was nobody's business but mine, until I wanted to start really trying to help people and make a difference. But yeah, 20 years from diagnosis. We're just now in the last probably 10 years where people are starting to feel comfortable coming forward. And if everybody felt comfortable coming forward and it was a non-issue, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now, right? So
100%.
There's still a stigma attached to it. So there's 20 years from diagnosis before I felt comfortable enough to tell my story, right?
And then you came out with a subsequent article as well the next year. And so talk about you kind of that follow-up piece.
Yeah, it was called You're Not Alone, because that's what I learned. You're not alone. It had 1 million hits in under an hour, my article, right? It went viral. And it just showed me that there are way more people out there that struggle than don't. And if someone tells you that they don't struggle at all or they don't have a story, well, I'm sorry, but I don't think they're telling you the truth. We've all got struggles. We don't come here to Earth to just have an easy. We're here to learn lessons, and we're here to go through stuff. And those are my beliefs, and some harder than others, but we all got stuff that we go through, right? Nobody, well, unless you're Tom Brady. He kind of lives the.
You never know.
I'm wondering what kind of deal he made, because
no kidding.
But yeah, even a man like Tom Brady, divorce, right? We all go through struggles, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what
in your position, you went on, of course, to retire, and you were in a position of being a coach. I don't know if you were talking about what you were going through, but how did that change you in the way that you related to players or your colleagues? Were you reaching out? Did you have that capacity? Because all this time you're still managing your OCD. You're still managing and doing the best you can to be your best self.
Yeah. And I don't want people to think that I'm by any means cured. Every day I work at it, right? Like every day I'm doing meditations, or I'm doing or whatever I need to do, finding new ways to stay healthy and stay on top of it, right? So that's just what it is. It's like having diabetes. Well, guess what? You're going to have diabetes. It's not curable, but it's treatable. You got to manage it. Mental health is very similar to that. And in some cases, in other cases, people go through ebbs and flows. But as far as like coaching and that, I don't think it really affected how I was as a coach or any of that stuff. What I will say is that I loved coaching. I loved broadcasting. I loved playing. But what I do today is what fulfills me. Is, I'm a keynote speaker, and I go and I speak to corporations, kids, high schools, whatever, and that's what fulfills me, right? And when someone comes up to me and tells me that, I may have helped them or helped their child, that's bigger and better than any win I ever got in any hockey game I ever played, right? So
Mm-hmm.
life to me is about service, helping other people. And it took me a long time to learn that. It really did, until that article came out, that's what you find out. Life is about helping each other, right?
Yeah, it definitely is. And I'm thinking about you speaking to to communities and to young people. And you've talked a lot about it during this interview of just have the conversation, just tell somebody. Like, how can we really encourage them to do that? Because it feels like it's easier said than done. I mean, and again, no comparisons, but you were an NHLer, top of your game. And certainly the pressures of who you were supposed to be were significant. But, people feel degrees of pressure in every day of their life. And so we have some people listening right now, whether it's OCD or something else, or they don't know. They don't know what's going on with them. How do you take that first step? How do you overcome the anxiety of revealing and being vulnerable and saying, I need help?
Yeah, that's a great question. What I've learned on my travels and speaking circuit and all that is that it's just as important, if not more important, to be that person that says, hey, you can talk to me, right? So it's one thing for the person to reach out, but if they don't feel there's someone that they can talk to, um, it's difficult to come forward. See, and that was me. I didn't feel like there was anybody I could talk to. I wanted to, but I was like, okay, if I talk to the coach, okay, well, that's going to get me fired. If I talk to a teammate, well, then my
Mm-hmm.
teammates are going to wonder if I do, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
so that's where I get the message out there that it's more important even than for the person to reach out, to be that person that says, hey, you can tell me anything. I'm not going to judge you. Look, I'm going to listen, and I'm going to refer you to somebody I know that can help you, right? So that to me is even more important. And then if you don't have that, well, your first step is usually your family doctor, a doctor or somebody along those lines, even a nurse friend. If you have a friend that's a nurse, everybody, I think we all have a friend that's a nurse or somebody in the medical field, right? They've seen it all. You can't even imagine what these people have seen, right? And they've
Mm-hmm.
heard it all. So those are the people that are good to open up to, because they're also trained in that, and they're trained in where to go. So how do you get someone to open up? you know, um, Basically to let them know that no thought or nothing you're going through has not been seen before. Like, this is something that we all deal with. There's strength in numbers. That's why me telling my story and being able to use my platform, if people like, whoa, that's the same as me, right? There's a common ground. There's a familiarity. You don't feel alone. When I was going through, I remember sitting there, laying there, going, "I'm the only one in the world that's going through this. Like, I'm the only one, right?" And it's so isolating and alone. And what I found out was there's millions of people out there like me. So to let people know that whether you're thinking of suicide, whether you're thinking of self harm or harming others or anything like that, or whatever it may be, please step forward, tell somebody, because that's how we're going to get you the help. If you don't tell anybody, we don't know. It's not written on your face, right? We need people to
Mm-hmm.
talk. We need people
Mm-hmm.
to say something, and that's probably the biggest thing we can tell. And then being somebody that somebody can talk to, man, that's a gift.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I wanted to ask you that. If you're a coach or a fellow player or a loved one, whomever, how do you show that support? Like, what was really supportive to you as you went along in this journey that you're on and managing your OCD?
Yeah, what's been supportive to me is just, I've learned how to communicate when I'm not doing well. So if I'm having a bad week or a bad couple of days, I'll be like, "Hey, I'm struggling here. I need to just check out for a couple of days or a couple hours, right?" And then if my buddies haven't heard from me in 24 hours, I have a group of people that they'll be like, "Hey, what's going on? What are you doing? Haven't heard from you in a few days. You doing okay?" They'll check in, like we check in on each other, right? Buddy check. We do all sorts of things like that, right? So I've also learned that me communicating my struggles really helps a lot too, because then people are understanding. I've had times where I've fallen, or whatever, started to struggle a little bit, didn't make an event or a meeting, and I call and I just say, hey, you know what, I'm struggling a little bit with my mental health today. I'm not gonna be there. People are understanding when you don't just show up.
Mm-hmm.
People are like, okay, what's going on, right? Like the communication from both sides is imperative. And one thing too is that when I'm struggling and I'm around my friends, to let them know I'm not doing well is important, because if I don't, they'll think that maybe it's them. They might have done something wrong or whatever. It has nothing to do with them, right? We don't want people to feel uncomfortable around us when it has nothing to do with them. So I've learned to communicate on days that I'm not doing great, and that's been a gift too. And what you'll find is that there's more people out there that are understanding than not, right? And it's all communication and letting people know.
How does managing OCD look for you today? You mentioned earlier, it's not a cure; it's something you manage. You face it and do things every day to support it. Again, maybe with folks understanding exactly what it is. Talk a bit more about that.
Yeah.
About how you go through your days.
I have a therapist that when I start to struggle, I might not have seen her in a year and a half, but I'll give her a call, make an appointment right when I need it. So I have a therapist like a doctor, somebody that when I do start to struggle. Right now I'm medication free, but I'll get back on my meds if I need to. I have no issues with that. That's something that I know that I can and that I need to do if things don't well. Exercise, meditation, all those healthy things that we talk about. And I know when I'm sliding is usually when I'm letting my physical health slide too, right? They go hand in hand. The other route I've gone down the psychedelics route a little bit. And that's something still that remains to be seen for a lot of people. For me, it's helped me, but I'm not recommending it for anybody or anything. I know that it's helped me. I think it's a tool that in the future is going to be an outstanding tool for mental health. But
well, and it's interesting that you mentioned psychedelics, because it is something that I hope to talk about on the podcast in the future. So I'd love to have you back to talk about that as someone who's experienced it, and of course, obviously the sides of it. But so that's you have a myriad of things that you do,
so many,
and utilize all the tools in the toolkit.
That's exactly it, right? Like with mental health, it's not one size fits all. There's a lot of different things for everybody, and I believe there's a place for everything. I believe there's a place for psychedelics. I believe there's a place for therapy. I believe there's a place for medications, right? We shouldn't pit one against the other. Medication saved my life at one point, right? So there is a use for it. Now I've tried to go a little bit more of a natural route. So it's whatever works for you. You fight with mental health with every tool you have. And the bottom line is that we need people to stay here, right? We need people to stay here. We need them to be here, not to do things to themselves that take them out of the game. And whatever that takes for you to do, I am all for it, and I'll stand behind anybody that looks to get healthy and looks to get better. And every day I look for a new way or something that's going to help me.
Corey, thank you so much for your time. As we wrap up, final thoughts, last things you want folks listening and watching to know about you or OCD or just mental health in general.
Yeah, no, just I appreciate what you guys are doing here, because that's what it's all about is, mental health is the same as physical health. There's no different. I don't know why we separate the mind and the body. My brain is attached to my body last time I checked. So it's just a matter of encouraging people to get help. And be that somebody can talk to, right? I mean, that's a gift. Be non-judgmental, and sometimes all you need to do is listen and say, "Hey, you can talk to me," and it's a beautiful thing. But thank you for having me. It's wonderful what you're doing. I always appreciate what you guys are doing, and it's a beautiful thing. And how many people you help is amazing.
Well, how many people you're helping is thank you for what you're doing. And I love that. Be that someone can talk to. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
If you'd like to have a look at the articles that Corey and I were talking about, you can do so at the A Way Forward podcast page at cmhakelowna.org. And if you have any questions about this interview or other topics we may be covering, you can always email me at awayforward@cmhakelowna.org. Until that time, please do take good care. This episode is supported by Beam Credit Union. With deep roots in BC and a commitment to your financial journey, Beam proudly backs mental health conversations that help build stronger, healthier communities.